Want to click your microphones on. Just hit that button on the back. Start the recording. Now we'll start. Thanks, Angie. Okay, welcome to the Planning Commission meeting for April 2023 for the county. We will start with opening remarks and pledge by Chris. Oh. You hadn't reviewed the agenda. You just skipped down to the items, don't you?
That was the part that I
You skipped that
I
first
missed,
line.
obviously.
Yeah, you're up first today.
Well, I think I'll keep my remarks to what's obvious out there, and that we'll look forward to a nice, slow, and steady runoff this year to keep everything in order and not get out of hand, because we sure were blessed with plenty of snow and water this year, so we're thankful for that. And if you would now please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks.
Okay, you guys had a chance to review the agenda. Are there any changes, Angie, that?
There are not any changes.
Agenda and minutes, has everyone reviewed those?
Look at them. Motion we approve the minutes. Or the agenda. Excuse me, that's first.
We can do both of them if you want.
And the minutes.
I second the motion.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right, the next three items, consent items, the LaRon Fallsliv subdivision, Henry's Heights subdivision, and Old Canyon subdivision, are items that all meet the county requirements to be approved without discussion. And so unless there is someone that is here to speak on one of those items, we will move to approve those. Seeing none, commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the three consent agenda items.
I'll second that.
First and second, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, perfect. Moving right along. Okay, Cherry Peak Ski Area Conditional Use Permit Amendment.
Yes, so this originally came before the Planning Commission on October 6th of 2022. It was moved to continue that item up to 180 days to allow the applicant time to submit a revised letter of intent and associated supporting documentation that reflected changes in direction that the applicant had discussed with the commissioners during that meeting. That 180 continuance does end tonight. On March 1st, the applicant submitted their revised letter of intent, which was included in the packet, reducing the maximum number of daily visitors from the previously requested 4,000 to 2,000 persons per day. As a reminder, the current CUP approval allows for a maximum of 1,000 people per day, including visitors and staff. The applicant did not provide any additional documentation to support doubling the number of daily visitors, and the revised letter of intent explicitly stated that there's no new construction proposed to accommodate the expansion. So that revised letter of intent was distributed to the development review team. Building department had concerns about doubling the number of visitors without addressing parking and restroom issues. The fire district again recommended denial due to the lack of appropriate supporting documentation, and their additional comments from the October 6th staff report are still applicable. The county engineer also continues to recommend denial, as the revised letter of intent states that no new construction is proposed for their request, but the requirements of the county code of Rome manual standards cannot be met without new construction and infrastructure. Additionally, Public Works is concerned that the current site plan and parking is different from the approved master site plan of the original CUP, which suggests that the recreational facility may be currently out of compliance An updated master site plan is needed to complete a full engineering review to establish the baseline for the current CUP, determine impacts of the proposed increase in visitors per day, and draft conditions of approval to mitigate those impacts. Also, a new or expanded development cannot be on a substandard road, and 11,000 North is substandard as to travel lane width, paved and gravel shoulder width, and clear zone. So staff's recommendation, again, with the revised letter of intent going from 4,000 per day to 2,000, it is still double what was currently approved with no improvements to the infrastructure, parking, or restrooms. And so is again recommending a denial based off of those conditions from the October 6th report and per the March 1st revised letter of intent.
Okay. Thanks, Angie. Eric?
Mr. Chair, Dirk Anderson, Interim Director of Department of Development Services. I just wanted to add to Angie's staff comments. And I agree with everything that she mentioned in the comments. What we're going to try to do, we're going to continue to work with Cherry Peak. We do plan on working with them on their concert series through the special event permit process. What this isn't allowing is them to increase the CUP maximum on a 365-day level. I've talked with Dustin at Cherry Peak, and I've been working with John. Really Dustin. John, I think, has been out of the country for some time. But John asked us to extend this past tonight, and we worked with staff and said we've already extended it 180 days, and we aren't trying to really shut them down or tell them absolute flat out no on any expansion in the future. Part of our issues, though, is that we aren't even super confident that they're meeting the standards under their current CUP. And there are safety issues at the lodge. There are issues with the road and the county road going through basically what is their parking lot. I would challenge any average citizen to go up there and show us once they get to the parking lot. So where do you think the county road is that goes through here? But I just wanted the commission members to know that we want to work with John and with Dustin and to help them come up to standards. We also believe, we believe that they are fine with the 1,000 CUP on their daily average for their skiing season. And so we can continue to work with them to help them expand that if they need to in the future. But we just want to make sure that we're taking the right steps that we would ask anyone else to do as far as giving us the good site plans and then following it and following all the requirements of the CUP. So I just wanted to make that comment, and we're happy to answer any questions that you guys have.
Any questions for staff, commissioners? Is there anyone from Cherry Peak that wants to speak to it? I don't think they came tonight, so you have something, Lane?
No, I'm just saying, it looks like there's plenty of reasons to at least not approve this amendment at this point.
Yeah, and I think, 180 days ago, we tasked them with coming back to us with the required information, and they weren't able to do that, so. Hard to even consider another extension or whatever without, some effort on their part to comply.
Yeah, and that's, my recollection as well was, we had some very specific questions, things that we were concerned about, and seeing, this level of response, that's a challenge for me.
Yeah.
Okay, what would you like to do then?
Okay, one question. If we deny this right now, they still have their current CUP though of 1,000. So they can continue to, on that level. We figured they're probably compliant.
Yep, this is just denying the application of the expanding it.
Expanding. So I'd make a recommendation for denial of the Cherry Peak area conditional use permit amendment.
I second the motion.
Okay, any further discussion?
Can I ask a question? Is it a recommendation, or are you guys the final say on this, so it just needs to be denied?
We are the
We
same.
are, yeah.
So it would be a motion based on the findings of fact.
Yep.
noted in the
Yes,
staff
excuse me,
report.
yes.
Okay.
Okay, all in favor of denial based on those finding of facts?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Okay, Claire Anderson, rezone.
Okay, so this is an item that was continued for up to 90 days from last month's meeting. It was a rezone, sorry, I'll bring up the map here, of 5 acres from agricultural to the commercial zone. It was continued to allow Nibley City Council to respond either in favor or against the proposed rezone. And so during a regularly scheduled Nibley City meeting held on March 9th of last month, this rezone request was brought up as a discussion and consideration item. And they did move to recommend denial to, or they moved to not recommend approval to the county council. And it was passed unanimously 5-0. Those draft minutes from the meeting are attached to the staff report as attachment C. So the staff report's just been updated with that update, as well as adding a new conclusion, number 3, regarding the Nibley City position on the rezone. And so staff's recommendation is still for denial on that. I should also mention the public hearing was held last month, opened and closed, so it's not necessary to do that again.
Do we ask for them to, if there's got any?
Yeah, I think I was gonna see
Updates to that?
if we had any questions first for staff, if anybody has.
I don't think so.
Okay, and I don't
I don't have
I
any
don't-
questions.
think the applicant's here, are they?
I don't.
Yeah, I didn't see him. Or, is anyone here to speak to this? Doesn't look like it, so,
He was in attendance at that county council.
right,
Oh, so he saw that, yeah.
Or the city
the
council.
city council,
City council.
yeah. Well, I think with that, you know, because the other thing we wanted to look at was potentially working with that landowner to the south for access, because if Nibley City was gonna deny it, he wouldn't be able to get through them, because they own that frontage of his property, and it looks like he hasn't come back with a proposal for a different route to access the ground either. So currently with them against it, he wouldn't be able to access that with, as a commercial parcel anyways, it looks like. Okay,
Okay, Mr. Chairman, then I would make the motion that we recommend denial to the county council for the Claire Anderson rezone.
okay. we've got-
Based on the conclusions and three conclusions.
Conclusions, yeah.
Yes.
I'll second that.
Okay, any more discussion? Okay, all in favor of denying the Claire Anderson rezone based on those conclusions? Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
I can't remember the last time we've had 2 denials in one night.
right in a row.
In a row.
Beaver Mountain Tower Conditional Use Permit.
Yes, so this is a CUP request to operate a major telecommunications facility on a 50 by 50 foot area near the top of the triple lift at Beaver Mountain Ski Resort. The facility will include a 60-foot tall communication tower with 12 antennas, a 12-foot by 22-foot equipment shelter, a 6-foot talking chain link fence apparently, so tall chain link fence, and access gates with barbed wire. The letter of intent and plans provide additional detail on the scope of this project. This project, the major telecommunications facility is allowed with an approved CUP, typically in the public infrastructure overlay zone. This is in the FR 40, but since the facility is located on property owned by the state of Utah, county land use regulations are not applicable. However, Verizon Wireless contract with the state requires them to go through our CUP and building permit processes for the facility. So we can process this and approve it even though it's not in the public infrastructure overlay zone.
Good to know.
That's good to know.
That was my question.
So access to the project is off the mountain road from SR 243, which is a UDOT facility, and that road meets or exceeds county standards. But from SR 23, the mountain road, obviously it cannot be inspected at this time due to the winter conditions. And so we have conditions of approval that require the applicant to contact Public Works once weather permits to go up and do an inspection to see if that mountain road meets our minimum standards of a 12-foot wide road. That's both per the road manual as well as the county fire district requirements. So there may be additional road improvements required just depending on what they find during that inspection. But other than that, it's fairly straightforward. Again, it just has to go through this process and the building permit process per their state contract. And so the conditions of approval that we've recommended deal again with that. The road, just making sure that that meets the requirement or will meet it after some improvements are done. And that they provide a copy of all requiring supporting federal certifications to our Department prior to recording the permits. But with that, staff is recommending approval.
Just a couple of questions on that. It says the triple lift, there are 2 triple lifts at Beaver Mountain. Is this the Harry's Dream lift?
Yeah, the applicant may be better able to.
I think it's Marge's.
Oh, is it on Marge's trip?
But I think it's
I studied the map really hard. It took me a while.
Yeah, and I'm not
think it's
familiar with the
Marge's.
area,
It's Marge's,
not a
but-
skier, so.
Confirmation.
Yeah, I believe the applicant is here and could address exactly what
Right.
that is.
I have another question, but it has left me.
Maybe the one I was gonna ask is, they request a height restriction waiver to allow for the 60-foot pole. I don't see any specific conditions in that regard, but maybe that's not necessary or whatever,
Exactly,
but.
because that's just, we sort of have authority, but not really. So
Yeah.
our requirements don't really apply, but they wanted them to at least go through the process to mitigate any negative impacts and make sure they got the proper building requirements taken care of and access that was
I think
appropriate.
that might be my only suggestion, is that we add that as a condition, that it's, not to
Waivers.
exceed 60 feet,
Okay.
so that if they wanted more than that or whatever, they would come back, because I'm comfortable with 60 feet. If it was 100 feet or something like that, I think it'd be a different issue. Personally,
Does
that's
that
mine.
put it above the elevation of the top of the mountain?
Yeah, sitting on the top of the mountain, it'll.
Oh, is it? I mean, well, Marge's isn't actually on the top of the mountain, though, is it? Top of the lift?
It is the top of that peak, if it is Marge's.
It's not, I was gonna say, the highest peak is on up,
Maybe so.
so it may still not be, as far as like for aviation concerns, it's not above the actual top of the mountain range right there.
It's, right.
But if you go up Hardware, where Curtis Creek Road comes in and meets as you go over, there's a tower there. Did we go through the same process on that, do you know, Angie?
I don't.
Because that's a pretty tall one there.
Yeah.
But I agree
mean,
with Chris,
they've
put a
asked
limit
for-
on that.
They've asked for 60.
Leave it at that.
I'm okay with 60, because it's still, it's taller than most trees up there, but
Yeah.
it's not,
Twice
as
it's not twice as tall, yeah.
Does that also make any difference as far as the communication level within that part of the canyon?
Yeah, they've analyzed it, and apparently 60 feet gives them what they
Gives
need.
them all that they need.
Yeah.
It'll add a lot to boost to that area for sure.
It'll be awesome.
Except I have AT&T. Will that work on that tower?
I'm sure they'll rent space.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll work for,
And I would just say condition 1, kind of, I think enforces that 60 feet, because it just says if anything is expanded or modified beyond what's in the findings of fact or staff report, then they would have to come back.
Fair enough.
okay. Does the applicant want to speak to it today? Yep. State your name first and then.
My name's Troy Benson, and I'm the applicant on behalf of Verizon Wireless, and I can answer any questions you have about the site. I may have gotten the lift wrong. It might be Marge's. I'm not 100% sure. I'm not really familiar with the resort too much. And as to the 60-foot height, I think the county's maximum height for towers is 40 feet typically, but we needed the additional 20 feet to get the line of sight Verizon's looking for. That'll give them better coverage of the resort and the highway. And also, we have a 50 by 50 space so that other carriers can put equipment within the compound. And at 60 feet, there will be enough space for another carrier below Verizon's antennas, whereas if we went at like 40 feet, that would be less likely.
So you kind of anticipate the other carriers.
I don't know what other carriers' build plan is, but if they're looking to improve their service in that area, this would be a great option for them.
I mean, is that kind of typical though?
Yeah, well, in busy areas, yes. This is a more remote area, and I'm not sure T-Mobile, AT&T's demands, but typically, yeah, if there is an existing tower, other carriers would prefer to co-locate on that tower rather than build their own.
How broad of an area is this gonna service, mostly to,
It's hard to say. It depends on how densely the area is populated. So where this is more of a rural area, it could go maybe like 2 miles max, I would think. But when we're in more commercial areas, we like to say a half mile, but here I think we can get more out of the site.
any questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else here want to speak to this? I don't think from the groups I see here, so we'll. All right, commissioners, what would you like to do on this one?
I guess I've got a question for Dirk. I know that Dave Zuckus talked about the idea of working on getting more cellular towers through the canyon. Was this kind of came out of the blue in our favor, or is this something that?
I definitely have an announcement that I can't make,
Okay.
but it's looking good
Okay.
from the federal side. But if I announce it tonight, it would be bad luck and some huge wrench would be thrown into, so there are things that are looking really good right now. And so we just aren't prepared to make an announcement on that yet. So I hope that did and didn't answer your question.
It didn't, yes.
Well, if there aren't any more discussion items, I would make a motion that we approve the UT1 Beaver Mountain Tower conditional use permit based on the 8 conditions and 4 conclusions.
I second the motion.
Okay. No further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, perfect. All right, Angie, dog boarding project conditional use permit. Yeah, don't jinx us yet. We're doing well. We're doing well.
There were times when this sort of item might run us for a couple of hours or so.
Let's see. So this is a conditional use permit request to operate a home-based kennel facility on 7.18 acres in the A10 zone. This is the property here. It's kind of at the north end of Clarkston, along State Creek Road. The cemetery for Clarkston Town is located about here. So we have the subject property here and then the cemetery there. So the applicant is proposing to operate a home-based kennel with up to 12 dogs. The applicant has experience in care and obedience training, as well as training and competing with her own English Springer Spaniels. She's outlined that in the letter of intent. And in that letter of intent, she also states it's not a breeding kennel. The subject property was previously used as a kennel and has existing kennel structure. Sorry, I can get the names off of here. There are quite a few pictures on your packet as well. There we go. So this is the building that would be primarily used for the kennel. It's 42 by 30 feet, so over 1,260 square feet. It does have electricity, heated floors, and water. Based on the site plan provided, the new definition or the current definition for home-based kennel requires a 50-foot setback from all property lines. This may not be there, so as a condition, we need a detailed to scale site plan confirming that that setback is being met, and if it's not, then that will need to be remedied. Or the applicant may be able to file for a variance on that, but again, we'll determine that once we get that to-scale site plan. The facility will be operated by herself and family members. A part-time helper may be retained in the future for help during busy seasons. Hours of operation are proposed from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. and then 4 p.m. to 7 p.m., 7 days a week. Applicant does not anticipate any deliveries from parcel services, specifically related to the kennel, and no signage is proposed. So conditional uses direct the land use authority to review the request based on standards and criteria defined therein, include compliance with the law, health, safety, and welfare, adequate service provision, and impacts and mitigation. A home-based kennel is allowed in the A10 zone for up to 12 dogs with approval of a CUP. We do have some additional requirements, as mentioned, that 50-foot minimum setback from property lines, and then noise levels cannot exceed 10 decibels. So a condition of approval is also that they have to have a sound level impact and assessment report prepared and signed by a qualified professional prior to recording the permit that kind of gives us a baseline of the ambient noise level.
Just for clarification, that's 10 decibels above the ambient.
Yes. Yeah, so
10 decibels is impossible, but.
Okay. So yeah, that is a condition of approval as well, that we get that base limit recorded, so in case there are future noise complaints, we have something to compare that against. The primary activities are proposed to occur on the subject parcel and will not cause unreasonable risk to safety of persons or property as long as the conditions of approval are met. Access to the property is from 8600 West. It's an existing county facility classified as a minor local road. It is considered substandard as to right-of-way, gravel shoulders, and clear zone. It is maintained year-round by the county. The driveway access from 8600 West to the dwelling unit and kennel facilities appears to be substandard and must be brought into compliance with fire district requirements, which is a 20-foot wide all-weather surface. When I was out there, maybe it was about 15 or 16 feet, though I didn't have my tape measure to confirm that. Access is also from 11,000 North. It's a existing county facility that provides access to ag lands and Clarkston Cemetery, as mentioned. It is also considered substandard as to width of travel lanes, gravel shoulder width, and the structural quality of the road is considered fair. Is maintained year-round by the county. Since the subject parcel previously operated as a kennel and there's an existing single-family home on the property, Public Works is requiring minimal conditions and just the improvement to the access from 8600 West to the driveway. But that might, again, include some grading in that, but no actual road improvements will be required as part of this approval. Parking, they'll need to show that there are at least 5 parking stalls on the site for proposed parking. In their letter of intent, they stated that the circle driveway would accommodate it, but the code actually requires 1 parking space for every 250 feet of kennel area. And at 1260, that would be at least 5 and 6. We don't tend to round up, tend to round down, but 10 square feet over doesn't seem too bad. So. Logan Environmental did not have any comments. The fire district, again, requires the access or driveway to the home to be 20 feet with an all-weather surface and cannot exceed the 10% grade. Checking to see if Tim was paying attention, and he was, okay.
Measuring something.
Again, the county land ordinance stipulates that reasonably anticipated detrimental effects of the proposed conditional use must be substantially mitigated by the proposal or the imposition of reasonable conditions to achieve compliance with applicable standards. So, again, known or reasonably anticipated detrimental effects, noise is the primary one. I did have a call from a commissioner from the Clarkston Town Planning Commission who did have some concerns about noise impacts at the cemetery. But again, that sound level impact and assessment report that's a condition of approval will establish that ambient noise level so that we can check if it's exceeding that decibel level any time of the day or night due to the dogs to determine if it's nuisance. I didn't receive any public or written public comment regarding it, just the phone call. And so with that, staff is recommending approval with the conditions listed. And that concludes my report.
Good, thanks, Angie.
Quick question, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Hey, Angie, did you, how far did you think the setback was?
I think on their site plan, it shows.
Didn't have your tape with you, you said.
Oh, that was for the driveway. It wasn't-
Driveway, yeah, the setback one here, you can see.
So they're showing 45.5, but I'm not sure whether that's being measured, because it looks like there's still an overhang, or 15.2, sorry. I'm looking at the wrong building. But I'm not sure if that's an overhang or if that's part of the kennel structure. But yeah, it was the driveway that did not appear to be 20 feet wide.
Could you reorient me? We had a proposed rezone in this same area.
We did. It's up
Fairly
the
recent.
ways.
Is it further? It's further north.
Yeah, it's,
It was
I think it's this property right here. I'll have to turn on the names to. So it's this Riggs property, and that was approved to an RU5 rezone. They have not come in and built anything though since.
Okay. Thank you.
He's my secretary.
I was just going to share maybe a opportunity to explore, and that is if the barn itself, the ag structure appears, just in a rough measurement in GIS, it seems to range from roughly 40 feet on the east side, and then the barn depth itself going to the west another 41 feet. It seems to have stalls on east and west sides with a corridor down the middle. And where, the home-based kennel mentions that the facilities must be a minimum of 50 feet from property boundary. Maybe the facilities are not on the east side of the structure, but more on the west side. So there might be some ideas to explore there, but just need more specifics.
Any other questions before we ask the applicant to come up?
Have none.
It might be a good project for a variance,
Yeah, I think so since the existing structure. That was.
given that it's not.
Applicant
there's
like
no
to come up?
development next door.
Well, it looks like the neighboring farmer's getting a little bit of free ground based on that. CRP, but might be getting a payment for an acre.
Hello, and thank you for looking at my request. If you allow me, I would like to, I'm sorry, I'm very nervous. If
You just state your name first so we get it on the
Yes,
record.
absolutely. My name is Ekaterina Brusco.
Thank you.
And if you allow me, I would like to very briefly talk about the business that I'm proposing. I would like to run a small boarding and trading kennel. And I know when people hear kennel, they get concerned. They get concerned with noise and dogs barking and chaos. This is not the type of kennel I am intending to operate. I would like to concentrate more on quality versus quantity. I would like to provide a really nice a place for the dogs to stay where the owners will be happy and they will feel confident leaving their dogs. I want to provide a place for where I would want to board my own dogs. I have been doing this for quite a few years, and I have really great reviews and really get great feedback at what I've been doing. I want to be a good member of the community and definitely don't want to create a lot of noise or disturbance for anybody around. I would like to make my main focus as of being a board and train facility, so where people can leave my clients can leave their dogs for on average average of 1 month for training, and then I would like for those dogs to come back as boarding clients. Of course, it's not going to be possible right off the bat because I will have to accumulate enough training dogs. But this is my long-term goal, is to mainly board the dogs that have trained with me. So the way the kennel is going to operate, I know I stated operating hours, but it's not going to be you come in anytime you want and drop off your dog, because there is no reception, there is no check-in. They would have to contact me before they drop. It's appointment only, basically. So it's not going to be a lot of cars driving by. It's going to be one person, one client at a time coming in, dropping off the dog, and then next. I am not planning on running a doggy daycare where people drop off their dogs in the morning and pick them up in the evening. That is not my goal. I would like to run a boarding kennel with more the emphasis on a long-term boarding, because it's also kind of a remote location, so I doubt people are going to be dropping dogs off for 1 day. It's mostly going to be a minimum of a weekend or longer, like a longer vacation stays. Every dog that comes in will have to go through a meet and greet first before accepted in the kennel to make sure that the dog is safe around myself and the other dogs that are in the facility. That is it. That is, I guess, the brief explanation of my business. I would like to talk a little bit about the conditions, if I may. I guess one of the big concerns to me is as you were saying, as the distance from the property line. Right now, it is, if you don't count the overhang, so the actual inside of the building is 50.2 feet from the center line. If you do
Closed part of the building.
in the closed part of the building, yeah. If you do count the overhang, it does not meet the standard. We are required to do the I'm sorry.
Variance?
No, like the surveying. Sorry, thank you. The resurvey, doing another survey to check it again, but I really doubt that it's gonna be that much. So, the fact that it has been already a kennel before, and this building is fairly new, maybe it could be waived, or we could be a little bit more lenient towards that for that building. So that I guess that's my request, or something for you, if you could consider. I guess the rest of the another question I have is on condition number 6, the request to pave the right-of-way, so that basically just the entrance of the driveway. Would you allow us to use recycled asphalt instead of the pavement to maybe save a little bit on the cost of it, since it's going to be a very small home-based operation? Also, I do have questions, if possible, to clarify them of how I assume it's going to be the right-of-way, since it's 33 feet from the center line of the road, and the road is 50 feet, I believe. So it's going to be 8 feet of 8 feet in, and is it still 20 feet wide? Is that what it's going to be? Yeah, that's the request. Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. Also, on condition number 8, the request for parking, as I mentioned earlier, everything is going to be appointment-based. There's not going to be a need for, there's never going to be a need for multiple parking spaces. I just,
On that one, I would just show on your final plan map on the north side of the kennel, that's wide enough, you could just show that's 5 parking stalls.
okay,
I mean, they don't have to be, I mean, you
They
can
don't
just
have
show
to-
there's enough parking there for 5 parking, I believe, right, Tim? There's just plenty of adequate parking next to
Should
that
be easy
building.
to comply.
okay,
Yeah, that one, just show it on your map that that's your parking stalls.
okay,
Require you to stripe it or anything.
okay.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Park
And
5
for condition number 10, this is, I understand what they're trying to do, and I don't think, and please help me clarify this as well. I believe that the widening of the road is just to the V right there and to the right towards the canal, because it looks like the circular driveway is plenty wide. So it's just that little, basically that little,
Yeah, just,
like a
just have to-
V-shape area.
And then
that
they'll just
they
have
want.
to make sure that, which it looks like it probably is, that corner is wide enough for their radius that they require for their trucks.
To turn,
To make that right-hand turn coming up the driveway there, they'll have a measurement requirement for that, but
okay,
it should be pretty easy to meet. there
okay.
also.
We have a contact in the fire district, so he'll be able to help you with that.
Yeah.
They can come out and guide through that. Okay, that's great. This is all on my part.
We could just maybe respond to some of those questions.
Absolutely.
We have the responsibility as staff to prepare a summary of how we believe your proposal meets the current county requirements in the code inclusive of the zoning code as well as the road manual. Specific to your question about the paved approach in the right-of-way, that's a standard in the road manual. And we don't have a representative from engineering here this evening and Public Works, but the purpose of that requirement and the applicability is to pretty much any other use other than agriculture. And its intent is to protect the edge of the pavement of the county road and then to protect debris and so forth from coming up onto the road. And so it's a standard county-wide, and for an accessory use or home-based business, then it's an opportunity to bring something that may never have been paved, or maybe it was, and I don't know if it ever was or not, but new permits, new reviews, applications trigger the opportunity to become compliant with the current standard. So that's the purpose of the approach. They would be the ones to determine whether a certain paved surface or an alternative would be appropriate or not. We'll relay that question to them.
Okay. So that will be up to engineering department.
They'll look back to the road manual to see what's required in that code.
Yeah, and we have actually met with a road guy today, and he said he would like to meet with an engineer if possible to kind of go over exactly what they want, so just to make sure that everything is, like we don't make any mistakes and then have to go back and redo it again, so.
Yeah, and you'll definitely want all of that approved before you do any work, so.
Right.
And then you mentioned you'll be surveying and establishing maybe a clear delineation of your property line?
That's, well,
Measurement or that?
that's one of the conditions, I believe, is to,
Well, it's to give a detailed site plan, not necessarily a survey per se.
Oh, I thought I heard her say survey.
oh, I was under the impression that it was a
Oh,
survey.
No, it just needs to be a scaled site plan, because right now we just kind of have approximates, but we just want to get that detail. But it doesn't require a survey of the whole property unless you want to.
Okay, and
If that helps you establish that you do meet that 50-foot, that'd be nice to know.
yeah,
It'd be worth bringing a surveyor out.
it's gonna be, with the overhang, it's gonna be, I know it's gonna be pretty hard to meet that. How do I go about of getting a scaled site plan versus a survey?
Well, survey, you work with a surveyor. A scaled site plan, you can work with a drafts person, or you could just use that graph paper that represents, each square is a foot or whatever. But we just need something a little more detailed, just so we can.
Than what you have,
Yeah.
okay,
A lot cheaper than a surveyor, though.
absolutely.
But it would be interesting to determine where the 50-foot mark is.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's the outside of the wall, the inside of the wall, and then,
Well, from
what
what,
is the facility?
Well, generally, the county code is overhangs on the house. Anything counts towards a facility usually. Like even the eave of a roof of a house, you count to the eave, not to the wall. So I would assume, unless that doesn't count on other structure, but generally that's the way it's been on most other structures. It's the furthest most point of a structure for setbacks and different things, putting in a shed.
Facility could be like play areas outside too, that's not necessarily a structure.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's why I would think, I wouldn't do the survey. I think, request the variance, because I think you're not gonna move that much to do it, and so save the money.
We can't give you the variance as part of this process, but it's a process you can follow up with.
Go through it.
and the variance would be how to,
Would let you have that within the 50 feet, so
less
you wouldn't
than
have to be
50
50 feet
oh, I got you, I understand, okay,
to go through that process.
okay.
It's a separate request,
It's a separate request, okay,
but it's handled by staff
okay,
And the Board of Adjustments.
and the Board of Adjustments.
okay, that would be great. So I'm good? Thank you for your time.
Yeah, or whatever you need, right?
Okay, any other questions, commissioners? Nolan?
I just echo what Amy said here. There's 3 questions, 6, 8, and 10. Check that out before anything goes on, because I don't think you're gonna get anything to go on 6 except follow the road manual. So we can't step into that one, then that causes an issue all the way. The parking seems pretty easy, and the 50 feet determine where that goes, so that's all I'm saying.
Okay.
Maybe some other folks that have questions.
Yeah, does anyone else here to speak on this? No? Like we're good? Yeah.
Spectators tonight.
Yeah, we got a good group. Usually they like to come talk about something. They just want to see how we're working.
Hey, don't encourage them. This might get out by 6:30. Now, record.
Okay, what do you want to do, commissioners?
You ready for a motion?
You bet.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve this conditional use assess, the dog boarding project CUP with its associated 10 conditions and 2 conclusions.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
There you go. You've just got to work through a few things with a couple other departments and
Thank you.
keep working on it. Thank you. Look at that, there's nothing on the back. We're to the bottom, Angie.
I'm so happy. I don't know,
Record
Tim, you
time.
want to talk about the joint meeting for a moment?
Yeah, let's have information on that one.
Been in the works to plan and find a date that works for commissioners and council. I hope this works for most of you, if not all of you, and others that aren't here tonight.
I would be out of town that day. Is there any option to do an online, that I definitely will be available to call in, but
Yeah.
Okay, and we understand there's several topics that are of interest, and we can kind of talk through the proposed outline of those that we'll kind of formalize for an agenda. But go ahead, Mr.
You bet. So between Tim and I and Angie and all of us just kind of listening over the last few months in council meetings and these meetings and different issues that have come to us as well at the staff level, we're suggesting to cover the following topics. And in this order, just because we talked through it, Tim and I talked through it today. First of all, Nolan mentioned and asked specifically for a legislative update on water issues. And to put the heat on him, we'd like to publicly invite the chairman to come and provide that.
We might need to add 2 more hours to the agenda
Oh.
for that update.
Up front, we're allowing 20 minutes for that for both the update and discussion.
It's going to have to be quick.
And maybe, so Nolan, you probably even know more than I do. You know, it starts at 3:30. I'm trying to do like a 1 hour plus meeting, you know, to give the council members a few minutes between meetings. So this is just a rough outline, and it's just what we suggest, you know, we're here to serve you. So first, legislative update on state water issues. Second, what Tim and I are calling moderate income housing plan / ADUs. Although we wanted to avoid saying that acronym at all tonight for Nolan's benefit.
And a few other mayors that I'm hearing from.
Yeah.
So I hope you come with other ideas besides just ADU.
And that's the whole point. Really, what can be a part of kind of driving that discussion is the fact that we have a moderate income housing plan, and the council, you know, with our help, the council's picked 4 priorities to cover. And one of those is to discuss ADUs this year. And by the end of the year, we have to provide an annual update on the moderate income housing plan. Part of that will be, hey, we held a really cool joint, you know, planning commission and council meeting back in April. So it's under the auspices of the moderate income housing plan, but we get to discuss ADUs, but and basically we're wanting to just discuss it so that we can figure out a plan and a direction that the planning commission and the council want to go. I think that'll really help everyone if we can at least have that discussion. And I don't imagine a whole lot is going to be finally decided on Tuesday night, right? This is a place to start the most important discussions we can have. And then we can have subsequent workshops and other meetings and other ways that we can work through those issues throughout the year. So number 2 was moderate income housing plan / ADUs. That not only includes the moderate income housing plan, but we have staff have received several requests over the last year where applicants want to start with what will one day become an accessory guest house, is what our code currently allows, where they want to live in the accessory, the future accessory, while they're building what will one day become their single-family dwelling unit. And so when that would happen, it's like a magical moment at the point of occupancy after they built and got everything done and approved with the single-family dwelling unit. Poof, by magic now, what they were living in and was officially their single-family dwelling unit has no more oven, by the way, and now becomes the accessory, while what they were building becomes the single-family dwelling unit. Because our county code, and I don't know about state code so much, Angie can chime in if she knows, our code doesn't allow you can't have an accessory unless you have a single-family dwelling unit first. So it's chicken and egg kind of thing, and our county code doesn't handle it very well. So we as staff want some guidance, and right now we're kind of telling people, yeah, we think we can allow that, but you have to.
In that instance, you're saying you're accepting a detached dwelling unit.
Well, while they're building it, it's a single-family dwelling unit and has an oven. On the magical moment of occupancy, they're not allowed to have that oven in there, and our code does allow for a guest house, I think is the name, the nomenclature.
It would be in the context of an attached.
So it's the place where you let your kids and grandkids sleep overnight, but there's no oven.
And see, and
There's no working kitchen in it to meet
Yes.
the current code, I
Yeah.
is what I hear.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so,
And I hear reports, especially up Smithfield and a few other areas, where that is not being followed, and so we have some issues. And
Well,
which brings me back
It's
to
in
Nate.
Smithfield, that would be under their code, right?
No, this is up the canyon, so it's county.
yeah.
And you can have it up on some other canyons. And there was a discussion, and this is why I wanted water bringing in, because we had talked about if there is a detached, then there's talk about a separate water permit, wasn't there?
Depending on which person from the state engineer's office you talk to.
So that's
We
the
need the
part.
state engineer's office to make a final call on that.
And then it also comes from Bear River Health as to, because when you plot a septic tank in your drain fields, you're supposed to have room that you have another drain field replacement. So when we start talking detached, you've got those items to consider as well.
And what I've found very quickly as serving as interim is we get reports all the time about what's quote unquote actually happening out there. And Steve Reeder's our code enforcement officer, and he's been working really hard, and he's doing a really great job at helping us follow up on some of the most major issues we have out there. But administratively, it's very hard for us to not allow something based on what we think might happen with a dwelling.
We're going out and determining this is a full or not a full kitchen.
Yes. Now, all the time we're getting, hey, this was what we approve or what we request from an applicant. Great, go do that. And then when Paul and his building guys go out and they draw us, we got one this week, and they draw us a pretty, better than many site plans we got, a diagram on what was actually built. Oh, there's a bathroom there, there's a bedroom, there's a kitchen, there's an oven, and that was supposed to be like a garage, right? And so we're watching this as they come through the process and doing what we can administratively. But by all means, I think it's great to have the discussion because you guys get to set the policy on what might help guide the county through what we actually want for ADUs / guest homes / whatever. And so and on top of that, we're gonna, as part of that discussion, we're gonna talk about alleged update on ADUs and what the state has recently required, where our code is or isn't in relationship to that, and we might give some suggestions on, hey, we just need to update our code to allow for this or that, not trying to lead and guide like policy, right? But just saying to come into compliance with what the state has passed. So, for instance, we've had requirements in the past that internal ADUs, that's within the footprint of your home, your single-family dwelling unit, we've had requirements in the past on how many square feet that could be. And the state has clearly come out and said, you just can't have a maximum. And so that's, all part of what we want to help. We're here to help as staff to help guide the discussion. So first was water update. Second was moderate income housing plan / some ADU discussion, and then we really want to also discuss, which we're worried about the timing and how much time we'll have at the end, but we want to also discuss sensitive areas. But this includes steep slopes in two ways. One is private roads potentially to be allowed for a private person to build a road through steep slopes with later guidance and requirements from engineering. And then all sensitive areas, including steep slopes, being included in density calculations. And honestly, Tim and I are like, we just hope to get through as much of that as we can. But in my mind, what that means is to get through that amount of information, it's more about, here are the issues, here's what we're facing, perhaps in some of the times, this is what state code says, definitely in all of those issues, this is what county code says, and then where do we want to go from there? And we can definitely, in the future, give you options on, well, the council really wants to go this way. And then we can say, okay, well, this is what you might want the code to look like, and we can help with staff analysis and looking at other counties and what they do. But, I think this first meeting will be really important to kind of set the stage, and then we'll go from there on discussions, and we can support you. Anyway, so that was a lot longer than it should have been, but it's kind of a complicated thing for such a simple meeting. But did I miss anything, Tim?
No, I would just offer one segue to kind of a extension of the moderate income housing plan, which is that the county provides countywide planning services in support of our partner communities, and that through a countywide planner, and we're getting close to filling that position. So that is in effect implementing our moderate income housing plan, just to make that higher.
Yeah, so there's the update on what we think we'd like to talk about. Of course, it's really up to you and the council if there's any additional things that we'd like to talk about. And I'm sure that as we go throughout this year, we'll have the experience of, hey, we talked about this, but that really brought up a really interesting and important thing we need to talk about additionally. So that's kind of my report on what we think we'd like to talk about.
Get that done in an hour.
I couldn't even explain the summary in 6 minutes, so.
Bar on the agenda? Okay, cool.
Thank you, Nate. We appreciate you being willing to do that.
It's gonna be a fun night, right?
That's to ask you for money, so we'll see. Okay, with nothing else and no objections, we'll adjourn. Oh, Tim's got something else?
Just the, after the meeting conversation
Oh,
about
okay.
the water study. So please adjourn. I'm sorry.